So this is the 8th Lane podcast. Today we have Tim Rowberry joining us. Do you want to give us a little bit of a bio about yourself, Tim?
I guess the shortest way of saying it is I'm a pro track and field coach / marathon. I work with Nike athletes, and that's, the briefest I could possibly say.
The gist of it. You're a pretty accomplished track athlete yourself, though, right? That's kind of where you started in the sport? Yeah,
definitely. I definitely started off pretty well. I was one of those athletes that was like injured at least once a year, if not more. So I had some okay performances, but the best thing about being a coach is you can be so critical of all the stuff you did in the past that you're like, wish you could go back and be like, oh, I could have been better,
Yeah.
I feel like that's everyone.
Change something. Was there like an injury or something that took you out, or when did you say, okay, I'm done running, I'm going to start coaching type of thing?
So the last race I ran was back in 2015, I think.
Okay.
And I was a 800, 400 runner mostly. And so my hamstring had problems and it kept coming back in training. And I feel like that's like what happens to most 800 meter athletes. It's always a hamstring thing that like eventually gets too much and doesn't go away. So
that was just like the end of it. Wasn't your 800 time, I think I saw online, like 1:48 or something?
Yeah.
Which is a great time. You work with like insane athletes, but 1:48 for an 800 like blows my mind. It's really cool.
Yeah. After working with athletes I've worked with, it feels like something they could run on a workout or something in some crazy day. But yeah, I definitely an 800 meter runner. So
that's cool. And now you're coaching, like you said, a ton of Nike athletes, one of them being Sifan Hassan, who's mostly like longer distance stuff now. I think her shortest event that she's running this year, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 1500?
Yeah, she ran a 800, I think 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we try to keep, as balanced on everything as possible. So yeah, she runs everything. So.
So how is that training for events as short as like a 1500 meter all the way up to a marathon? How do you balance all of that? It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I first started working with her, that was when she was doing her best in the mile. I was a middle distance runner myself, so I definitely had some bias towards training things that were pointing towards that. And then she kind of, at the time when I first met her, she never thought in her life that she would run even a 10K. And like, even just imagining it, she like, even a 5K was still a little bit, far for her. She didn't really have that much experience with it. And so it was kind of just a process over a long time where we just did one thing at a time and like, wow, that really worked. And then, oh, wow, I want to try this race again. And then next thing you know, maybe she'll run ultra marathons or some crazy trail stuff. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I remember seeing an interview of her before the London Marathon, and she said she thought she would maybe drop around 25 kilometers and that she would in no way like keep up with the lead pack. And then there was an interview with you too where you're like, I don't even know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know if she'll keep up. And then she won, which is insane. How did that feel? Give me the whole spiel on that.
Yeah, well, I always try to have a healthy amount of skepticism about like, what this training means for this race. But this was a case where, I had worked with marathoners in the past, but I had never been the primary coach for marathoners.
Okay.
And even like half marathons and stuff, I was leaning on a lot of other coaching friends and that knew a lot more than me. And I was basically just, doing a lot of the same stuff they were doing. I'm even someone who'll Google things online and I'll look for whatever insight I can get. And then I try to mesh that into the stuff that already makes sense to me. So with the London Marathon, I didn't know whether training was going to be enough, and I didn't think it was possibly enough because we were in Ethiopia. That's where some of the best runners in the world are.
Yeah.
And we were watching their workouts, and even like it was just blowing our mind because we had never done anything even close to the tempos and the long intervals and like just typical marathon training you'd see. But at a really, really high level. So anyways, just seeing that alone and then comparing it with what she was doing at the time, it was just like, there's no way this is enough. And so I actually think it created the perfect circumstances where she had no pressure on herself. She was completely relaxed. I just remember I was just so happy when I was watching her in the press conference and stuff. And I was laughing because she was just like, what am I doing here? And I was actually thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm so glad that she's not feeling pressure. Like for me, it's actually also relieving that when she's not feeling so pressured about stuff. So
she's free to just like do her best, basically.
Yeah.
See how it feels. Why did you guys even sign up for the marathon? Or what made you say like London Marathon?
Yeah, I think Sifan, okay, so we travel a lot.
Yeah.
And the whole exploration part of, the coach athlete dynamic we have is, it goes over to like the racing side too. I think the reason she's tried so many different events is because we're always really, almost like playful in training and just trying to we get lost on the most terrible trails. Like we've been like wandering through swamps. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone on exploring runs, but like we've done that way more than anyone could possibly imagine. So I think like we keep things fun. And then it was just one of those things where she's just like, she's tried so many new things that she's just like, what if I ran a marathon, or how would that be? And next thing you know, she's like, I think I want to try a marathon. And we actually argued about it. We argued about it so much.
What was the arguing point? Like, it will slow you down in your other events, or what were you worried about? What was she worried about?
Well, the last couple of years, she's not always the number one, but she's always right there, like almost podium in whatever she's focusing on every time. And so it was one of those things where I just like, she's so close in different things and like so close to being in shape to breaking world records that I didn't want to pull focus away from that, because you never know if you're going to get the same opportunity again.
Yeah.
And maybe this 1 year in your life, you could break the world record in this one race, and you never know if the opportunity will come again. I've even with myself, like I suddenly stopped running. And so I know that one moment, like it just might be where you can't get back into running again. So if that makes sense.
Yeah. You don't want to like lose the opportunity for things that she's like at the precipice of almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But the marathon turned out great. She's like second fastest woman ever now, right? After Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that was, again, another thing way beyond our expectations for what we would get to so far. I was hoping just to make some progress. After her first race was great. Like anyone would be happy with that time. And then for her to be able to drop that time later in the year is just way more than we expected.
So what did you change? What were things that you looked at your programming? Was there anything that you changed specifically that led to the Chicago time that she put out there?
Yeah, well, I actually would say that it was probably a lot more of going back to what made her good in the first place. Because for the London Marathon, the reason that we were so healthily skeptical and just, the way we were in our interviews for that is because we were doing things so differently that it was just like rolling the dice. Like we had no idea what our training meant. We had no idea what was going to happen. And so then I came up with the idea of her trying to do a marathon after the World Championships in track. And it was actually hard to get her to agree to doing that at first. And she thought the Chicago Marathon was even closer. Like it's already like a hard thing as is.
Yeah.
Because most marathoners want, I don't know how many months is typical, but it's usually like a matter of months to get ready for any race. And so, yeah, we just went back to what was making her good, and she was starting to climb back up there and track again. And then we just kind of plugged in like the long runs of marathon training back into that, and it worked. And
It's
it was another
working
experiment, and there was no pressure again, maybe a little bit of pressure, but I mean, there's still, she was just curious because it was, again, going into a race, not knowing if your training was right or if it was good enough. And so that little question there, I think is something that every athlete performs better when they have.
well. Why do you think that is?
The brain is one of the most powerful tools that we have, and for good or bad. And I don't think people realize how much it affects everything from racing to training to even just setting goals. And so, like, when people would, if there's runners that say, there's no way that athletes can get this fast, that they must be cheating, like that kind of stuff. Honestly, all I think is, I'm like, that's just too bad for you. I mean, if you don't believe you can do something, how are you ever going to do it?
Yeah.
And I think people put these limits on themselves, and I really think that that's one of the most powerful things in athletics and in everything for that matter.
Yeah. What tools do you use with your athletes? Like, what tools do you give them to overcome self-doubt? That's something Sifan has been pretty vocal about on her Instagram page and in interviews, is having maybe like a healthy amount of self-doubt. I don't know. But what tools do you give them to help them put that aside?
Well,
or use it?
I don't know that, I mean, Sifan is a really special athlete. I think, I mean, you have to have, like people always say, even if you have all the talent in the world, you still have to have the right mindset and a lot of other factors. You have to be lucky and not get injured, not get sick. Like there's like, that's why running is such a crazy sport, is because so many things can go wrong. And so when everything goes right, that's why running is so special. And so for her, we listen to podcasts all the time. We for a while, I was asking her, oh, do you know about, this is something simple, but like, well, not simple, but complicated at the same time, is mitochondria. And I was asking her, do you know about mitochondria? Do you know what that is? And then next thing I know, we're listening to a podcast about what it is. And then I was just like going through different topics that I thought would be helpful for her, even with like, what is the best diet for running and all that stuff. So we listen to a ton of different stuff. She's always even looking at different YouTube videos, and she has her own favorite, influencers on health and stuff that she listens to. And a lot of those people, they talk about the psychological things. So I don't think that I could take credit for building her up to such an amazing person. But I definitely say it's partly education. And I'd say another part of it is probably she's a very religious person. And I think to be very religious, you also have to be able to accept everything, not knowing everything, but also you have very, very strong belief that in very specific things. And I don't know if
there's almost like a humility aspect to like someone who's very religious, in that like there is some belief in a higher power and respect for that higher power, which in turn gives you like a self-respect that probably really helps in athletic performance, I think. I hope you know what I mean, but you have to sacrifice a lot. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like what you were saying, like there's so much sacrifice that goes into believing and sacrificing your time and all that stuff, that I think it gives you an inner strength. And Eliud Kipchoge always talks about what's it called? Discipline. He always talks about discipline. And I think it's one of those parts of it. It's if you're disciplined, then even if things are uncomfortable or not going the right way, you are still hoping for something better to happen. There's always a reason for discipline. So that's something cool about running too, is that like a popular quote I've heard like a million times is that like your character is revealed in your races. And it's cool to watch athletes like Sifan and Eliud. Like you not only respect them as athletes, but you respect them for who they are and like who they've made themselves to be. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, exactly. I'm a fan myself of a lot of different runners that like it's not even their performance itself. It's what you see them go through and how they face it that is just so inspiring. And yeah, that's why athletics is just amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of inspiring, we've talked a lot about Sifan, but she had that in August. August was Worlds, right? In between the marathons. She had that race where she fell and then took the lap back from everyone, basically. How did that feel? What was that like, watching her do that? And
I mean, I remember sitting in the crowd and are you talking about the one this year?
Was it this year?
She's fallen multiple times,
Really?
Unfortunately. No, okay, so
like,
because she fell in the Tokyo Olympics.
Okay.
And then she also fell in the prelims of the 1500, and then she fell in this year at the very end of the 10K, right, like 10 meters before the line or something.
I think I'm talking about prelims of the 1500.
Yeah.
When was that one?
Yeah, that was Tokyo.
Oh, that was Tokyo. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that was definitely a big moment in like when I already know Sifan's character because I'm around her all the time.
Yeah.
But that was like a big moment where everyone else was able to see her character too. And I remember being in the stands. As soon as she fell, I was just thinking, okay, just you can do this. Just be calm, be calm, be calm. I wanted her to go really gradually, and that's exactly what she did. Like, not only did she go to the front, but she did it confidently. Like she did it very, very gradually. Just kept calm, and it was just an amazing moment.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I could like see the determination in her face, just like no hesitation. It was, yeah, so inspiring. Very cool. Definitely speaks to her as an athlete. Well, going into Olympics this year, what events are you allowed to say, or?
It's not that I'm not allowed to say, it's that, so as you know, Sifan runs a million different races.
Oh yeah.
But part of that is I'm way more flexible as a coach than most people would approve of. And so I really try to follow how things are going naturally.
Okay.
Because sometimes people will set goals and then the goals stop making sense sometimes. And people still keep chasing the same goal when they could just pivot it a little bit and be like, you know, this is what will work out right now. This would be perfect. And so that's kind of how we approach the Olympics too. Because she's become so versatile as an athlete, she can kind of have the luxury of seeing how her training goes. And that also allows her to not like destroy herself in training if you know, maybe her speed doesn't come back, or maybe the all the miles in marathon are you know, maybe something happens where she's limited in miles or something. So I honestly don't know. And before the Tokyo Olympics even, we didn't decide until we landed in Tokyo what she was going to do.
That's crazy. Does that make you anxious at all, or is it just like, we'll see?
No, it definitely makes me anxious. But I mentioned earlier that we were arguing about the marathon and her doing it. And there was a certain point that she kept bringing it up. And when something really means, like when she really cares about something, that translates into training so much that I can't avoid it. And so once, it's always up to her in the end. And so once she decides she wants to do something, then I try to support her and change things in training to make that possible.
That's very cool. Well, I'm excited to see what ends up happening.
Yeah.
After you guys have, how many months left do you have?
Well, we travel there in July. So it's basically less than 7 months now, or about 7 months-ish before we actually start. So
will all of your training be here? Are you traveling for that?
So Sifan is still doing like base training right now. Okay. And that's the only reason I'm still in the US at the moment. I usually go immediately after Christmas, or I come home for Christmas and then go back. So I'm going to meet her in the Netherlands on the 20th of January.
Cool.
And then Ethiopia. And then we'll come back to the US, and our base is in Park City actually.
Oh, cool.
So in April, I plan to come back, and then we'll be here until the Olympics.
Wow.
That's the plan for now.
Sounds fun. It's crazy. I do want to talk about one of your shorter distance athletes too, Halima. She runs the 800, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool because wasn't that like your favorite event?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, definitely I have a bias for that. So
Yeah. What are some big goals that you have for her? What are goals she has?
Well, I guess, last year our goals was to break her national record and to make it to the finals of the World Championships. She was the world champion in 2019, and I had known her I ran into her at races, and I didn't really know her. I just knew that she's one of those people that like are excited to see you and genuinely like you just like you can tell they're so happy and so genuine. That's how I got to know her. But yeah, I think that so
she's got big things still coming for her.
Yeah, I mean we're still focused on the 800 for sure. And I decided to start coaching her, even knowing that the 800 women are starting to become really, really competitive. So I guess our goal is still like, she just wants to make the Olympic final. I don't think she made it in the past. And so that's a massive goal for her. Making the Olympic final is extremely hard. And the number of women who are at the same level is also really crazy. Like this last World Championships, it was like there was a whole round of women who could have been in the final.
Yeah.
But different things happen.
Little tiny variables. And how many people? Do you know how many people exactly?
Like how many women are like right? Well, I mean, I'd say anyone who can run 158 has a chance of having a breakout race, or just playing out their energy the right way and making a final. You just have to get the endurance to do that in the final round.
Yeah.
Or over and over for that matter. But
so when you're going to like the Olympic finals, how many rounds are there then before you get to the finals? Because when you say endurance to get there.
Yeah. Well, for every event it's different, but I mean, for the 800, let's see, prelims, semi. Yeah, I think you end up running it. I don't want to say wrong.
Maybe.
At least 3 rounds.
At least 3.
Maybe 4. No, but I'm blanking it out.
That's crazy to have to
I think
really
it's just 3 times, but
hit like your best numbers at least 3 times.
Yeah. Well, actually, like part of the reason I'm confused is because this year there's something called a special in the Paris Olympics called the rep. I don't know how to say it. It's French. But anyways, if you get knocked out in a round, you can run the next day and get a second chance of getting into the next round.
That's crazy.
It's really weird. Yeah.
Only for the 800?
As far as I know, only for the 800, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's also in the 15 or some other event. But I know for sure it's in the 800 because it's something that, I mean, it's kind of scary. If someone gets knocked out and then they come back, like they could have a good day the next time and maybe they learned a lesson,
Holy cow. Yeah, that's intense. So when is she for sure going to the Olympics though?
I think as far as, I think there's no way that there's enough other people to knock her out of qualifying for her country. So she runs for Uganda. And so as long as I think she's already hit the standard too. So I think there's nothing that can stop her from going. Yeah, that I can think of. So
that's awesome. So how many athletes will you have in the Olympics this year?
Just those 2.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I want more athletes. But part of the crazy lifestyle we have makes it really hard to find people who can fit in the same travel and pay for everything, and like there's a lot of factors. But if anyone's listening to this and wants a coach, hit me up. But
there's travel involved.
yeah. You need a sponsor, that's for sure. Yeah.
That's way cool. Yeah, I saw on your Instagram you started another page. What is it called?
Nomad.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear about that. It sounds like it kind of goes along with your coaching style and like your philosophy behind coaching. I think this is probably a good time to talk about it.
Yeah. So it's Nomad International Elite, and that's a team that I want to build. I want to have a much bigger team, and I'm trying to build towards that. And picking up Halima and Sifan in opposite events was part of, just making sure I can coach any event that is in the range, and I want to stay in track and field. That's really important to me. So it's a project that Sifan and I made to start supporting other athletes in their training. The goal is to eventually have a lot of different resources. So one of the things, for example, is I've been working on a supplement, because when we are traveling in like Africa, there's a lot of times we have no access to any type of berry, and even getting greens. It's sometimes we can't get just these basic nutrients very easily, because we, like, the places we train sometimes are pretty remote. And so one of the things I was making is just a drink mix that you can put in to at least give you some of those nutrients and antioxidants that we'd be missing. So just like little things like that to try to make, and I also want it to benefit health in general. So anyone that, I think it's a widespread problem that people don't get enough greens and don't get enough antioxidants, and that's why there's so many different antioxidant supplements. But it's something really important, and eventually I want this team to be supporting athletes and actually sponsoring them. And so anyways, it's a long process to get where I'm trying to get to. But but I just love, I love what we're creating right now. And just keep watching.
It sounds like a fun project. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind the name Nomad International Elite?
So Sifan and I were actually in Namibia when we kind of like agreed on like, oh, this is like, we've been wanting to create something for a couple of years now. And, but I'm someone that's like way too patient with a lot of things. So I'm willing to, I don't like doing things until it feels right. And so I guess when the word nomad came up and I brought it up to Sifan, it matched everything that we kind of felt like defines like our lifestyle and our training. We're wandering all over the world. We're wandering through random forests and all that stuff. We're just, it was just kind of matched what we're really thinking. And I want to build something that can benefit everyone internationally. So wherever you're from, we can build something to lift up athletes from different countries, and try to track and field and even road running needs more sponsorships and athletes, and needs more things to support the sport.
That's very cool. So as part of this like running group, is that what you would call it, I guess?
Yeah.
Sponsorship.
It's complicated. I mean, it's like, it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what to call it myself. It's a team, but I feel like until I have a lot more athletes, it's a little bit more than that right now.
Yeah.
And eventually I'd love it to be a bigger team too. I think that's one of the healthiest things happening in the sport right now is these teams popping up and different sponsors stepping up. So that's been really cool. But yeah, right now it's a work in progress, and it's a athlete support resource. And so
I'm excited to watch it grow and see where you guys end up taking it. That's very cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about your coaching style too. You mentioned before, what did you call it? An explorer run?
Yeah.
Explain that to everyone who's listening. What does that look like?
So this is I guess it's something that I accidentally implemented into our training. So I actually stopped running for a year or two, a couple of years. I don't even know.
After the hamstring thing?
Yeah, exactly. And so it was really hard for me to get back into running. But what I noticed is that every once in a while, I would just do this really, really long run when I was curious about finding something. I started working with the Nike Oregon Project, and one athlete in particular, Shannon Rowberry, who is a name cousin. We're related like really distantly.
Cool.
And in some of the most recent races, people keep saying she's my wife or anyways, we're not related. Sorry, Pablo, her husband. Anyways, so when she was coming to Utah, she would ask me, hey, where are some flat places you can run and get in a lot of miles in Utah? And I was like,
Flat?
good. Yeah. So then like she accidentally created a hobby for me. Like I started searching on maps and like I just started going places and checking if like a trail was actually a trail or if it was someone's private property. And so anyways, that I noticed I would be able to run like forever. And I just always wonder like what's around this corner, like what's like, and just looking at these new places was just, it brought so much life back to just just wanting to run in general. So anyways, long story short, I started getting Sifan to do that because I knew how powerful it was for me. Then even after she'd do like a speed workout, and most times the next day people just do some boring run and, you know, somewhere close to their home.
Yeah.
But I would kind of lie to her and I'd say, oh yeah, I know this flat spot. It's really nice. It's dirt. Like, and then we'd be running on like the Bonneville Shoreline Trail.
Yeah. Super flat, super nice.
And, but then like, it actually worked out really well. I think, she ran really well with doing that kind of stuff. But
that's so cool.
But then she learned to love it too. And there'd be so many times where like, we were even running on the shore of Utah Lake.
Oh, cool.
And there's not
Some
a place
sand?
to run there, by the way.
Rocks?
Yeah. No, but it was like a time when the lake was pretty low. And so we ended up like bushwhacking like along the lake because it was also really beautiful. She loves nature. She loves mountains. And so we ended up like eventually ending up in a swamp and getting in
like
deeper than we wanted. Yeah. No, but actually, and that's happened not only in Utah, but in multiple countries.
That's cool though.
Yeah. Like we're going to get in trouble at some point because we just like we see an alley and there's like trees growing in it. And then we'll go see, let's see where this goes.
So do you guys run together a lot on her, like maybe recovery runs, easy days?
Yeah. So that, I wasn't too much. I was actually, when I first met her, I was pacing her workouts.
Cool.
I was still in good shape and that's kind of how I got into the pro running community to begin with. But during COVID kind of forced me to get back into running and it was kind of the right time. I had enough years off and next thing I knew, I was, doing a lot of runs with her because there was, it's hard to explain, like for pro athletes, especially like her caliber, people are expecting her to, I had a lot of pressure on me because I was just starting to coach her because she had to be successful. She was already like a pretty big athlete. And so then I kind of took it upon myself to start pacing her workouts because I couldn't hire pacers because of the whole COVID thing. And imagine you're a high level coach and you have like one of the top athletes and then they get COVID and like ruin their running career or something. Like, so that was always going through my head. And so like that pressure, and also another thing inside me is that I always feel like I wouldn't ask my athlete to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do with them or being willing to do myself. And so a lot of the time I would end up, whatever she needed to do, I would try to do it with her.
That's so cool.
So, yeah.
And are you still like that? Do you pace her often?
Yeah. And I'm just waiting for the day when I can't do that anymore. But I feel like I've probably gotten to better shape than I ever was before on the endurance side. That's where one of her talents are, obviously. But she really, just trying to go with her has pushed me into pretty good shape. And so I still do speed workouts with her. Not all the time. And then when it comes to, for example, she's getting ready for a marathon, there's no way I can do her marathon run with her, but I can do a good portion of it. I could probably do, I don't want to say how much, but I could do a good portion of it with her. But when it comes to those days, I'll get on a bike and I will pace her with something predictable. I have to give her water or some other electrolytes and all that stuff. And so it's a little bit of a mix, and it's always a game of, okay, I didn't do this workout with her. Do I have time to run today at all? And the battle that everyone faces. So
that's really cool. Do you have plans to do any races yourself, or are you content to do speed workouts with her and then kind of just hang out?
Well, it's actually almost been 9 years since I ran a race.
Really?
But this next week, I might actually jump into an indoor track race.
Ooh. Which one are you thinking of?
Just the one close by, the BYU indoor race.
Which event would you run?
Probably the mile.
The mile.
I'm still debating because, so I also help at Utah Valley University. I'm helping coach there in the brief time that I'm here in Utah. I'm here a lot more lately. We've been trying to get here, but so I help those athletes, and because I'm staying in shape, and also my goal is I have to be in shape to help Sifan, and so I can also pace them. I might be able to pace them to a record or something, and
that's awesome
for the university. So, so I don't know. I haven't decided for sure. I'm going to do something for sure, but if I run a race, it'll be the mile, I think. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, scary at the same time. I'm so scared. Yeah.
Yeah, racing is scary, and when you have like 9 years of like a hiatus under your belt, I bet it adds some pressure to it too.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that also got me back into running at all, like especially during COVID, is I remember Bernard Lagat was so inspiring to me, and just watching some of the best American runners who are like where people thought would be past their prime, and they're still making teams and stuff. And so watching that, like, I think most of the doubt people get as they get older is like, oh, I can't do what I did when I was younger. But I think that's partly just being scared to try new things, and people lose their sense of exploration and their sense of just trying to make have fun with things. And so anyways, watching other people break those barriers, at least the barriers in my head, were it's just so helpful to me.
So was part of your little running hiatus, I guess, where you stopped for a couple years because you didn't feel like you could perform at the level that you wanted to perform at? Or was it giving yourself a mental break? What was it for you?
I mean, I kind of I didn't really have, I probably could have asked people to help me coaching. I think I probably qualified for the US championships. I probably could have gone and ran there, but I literally knew nothing about how all that was structured because I didn't know anyone who was in it. I didn't have an experience with it. And so it's actually crazy what I've done with Sifan, considering that I had zero to do with the pro community or even with running higher than the college level like previously. So everything was new to me. And then, I wasn't even planning on coaching, honestly. I was planning on going, and I was interviewing for jobs already when I finished college. And
So what made you coach instead of take a job?
Yeah. So I just said, okay, I'll just race 1 year and just see what I can do. And that's when I was running 148 in the 800. And I was just, testing workouts. I had already started coaching in college, and I was an assistant, like a volunteer assistant. And so I was actually getting paid as a student athlete because I got one of those on-campus jobs, and it happened to be an assistant to the head coach.
Cool.
So it was like the perfect setup for any runner. But then as soon as I graduated, it was like it was that like really for fun that I was running. But anyways, it ended up working out really well. I was thinking, okay, what would happen if I did this workout? And I was testing it myself, just like like I said, I don't want to give my athletes something I wouldn't do myself.
Yeah.
And then come to find out, these different workouts I was testing and workouts I had seen other pro runners do, like Matt Centrowitz in particular, I was thinking, okay, what if I can just do a part of his workouts, or like, just kind of how much of his workout can I do? And that just kind of set me on a path where I was doing pretty well. And then I was one of the few people who run after college. And one of the problems at the time was college athletes aren't allowed to get paid for running. And so when pro athletes were coming to Utah, there's already a lot of pro athletes coming to Utah for their summer camp right before big races like the World Championships and Olympics. And so I just happened to be like one of the only people who were out of college and able to get paid for pacing and was in shape for it. And I was going to all these different races for fun. And so it was actually just some, other coaches in the state at different universities knew my name, and they told the Nike coaches about it. And next thing I knew, I was pacing Mo Farah in a workout.
That's so crazy. That's insane. Your story too is really inspiring to me, just because everything I've seen of you is very like, this just came type of thing. And it's so inspiring because I can tell you work hard. I can tell you care about your athletes, and it's obviously paid off for you. It's really cool.
Yeah, I just feel lucky, honestly. I put a lot into it when I was like volunteering as a coach, and it turns out that like when you really follow something that makes you excited, then that's the only reason I was coaching at the time. That is way easier to build a job out of than trying to do something you don't want to do. And so I just feel lucky because not everyone gets the chance to chase after something. Like it's so hard to chase after something and it succeed. I had friends trying to talk me out of coaching anymore, and saying, hey, they're trying to watch out for me, and they're saying you probably should stop. Like, this is taking too much of your time. I bet you'd be really good at this. Like stuff was happening right before I got my break.
That's so, yeah. One thing my husband told me when I first met him was, if you're passionate about something, that's what you should go after. Like, no matter if it's like inconvenient now, that's what you should go after, because the passion is what's going to make you succeed. It's obviously there for you. It sounds like it's always been there. So that's really cool.
Yeah. But, and for a lot of reasons, like what you're saying is true. Like it's not only does it give you energy, but it's also, life is really short. You never know what's going to come next. And if you don't appreciate the moment you're in and all that stuff, then it's just, life changes so fast. You just got to go with what you can and not worry about what's going to happen.
Yeah. I feel like it helps with like failures too, because everyone has failures and things they're trying to succeed at. Like, you had to work hard before you got your break at Nike. But when you're passionate about something, trying again and trying again and trying again and again is a little bit more tolerable, maybe. Maybe. Yeah.
Well, no, actually, so I mentioned that I suffered a lot of injuries in running, but because of that, I've been through a lot of like the cross training, and I partially tore my Achilles, and like I've gone through a lot of stuff, wearing a boot all the time. And just, that gave me so much empathy for what athletes go through, and also respect for the athletes that get through those hard times. That that's something that I also share with Sifan. She says that she learns way more out of failures than she does out of ever winning. When she says it, she's like, when I win, I feel like I've learned nothing. And so it's
that's really interesting. I actually really like that. That's very cool. Another thing I feel like you've been able to do is pull your passions into coaching. So like travel, you said you really like to travel. What are things that you look for in the places that you travel with your athletes? Like, is it training at altitude? Is it temperature, community? What are the things that you're looking at when you decide to travel?
I'd say there's a lot of different things you can look for in training, and there's different reasons why you'd want to do certain things. But part of exploring places is that you want to figure out what's the best. Like, I really had a question in my mind: what is the best place to train in the world? What are the best places to train at altitude? Is there a better place than this? When I was like in elementary school, my first like dream was like, oh, I want to be an ambassador. And the whole reason for that was I had a dream of living in another country and maybe like being forced to learn another language. And that was like, a big goal for me, is that someday I would go to a foreign country and be able to speak another language. So I think like part of the exploration thing was just, once you travel, it kind of gets addicting. And we would look for, I guess one of the most important things in training is right now is actually altitude. But I know that every athlete or coach usually gets too focused on one thing, and then they overdo it, and then they forget a million other easier things or just different things that they could be doing. So one of the reasons we love training in Utah is because it's almost a perfect combination of heat and altitude, especially at the critical time of the year. So right before World Championships, right before Olympics, we are running in the middle of the day when it's the hottest, and we're also getting really good altitude training. We stay up in a cabin in Park City. And so the different places we've gone to have all been different mixes of those aspects. So we went to Namibia, and that was because there was some of the best triathletes for a couple countries that were training there. And it's just
cool.
The middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place, by the way. I would recommend people go there to Windhoek, I think it's called. That's the capital. Cool. But it's when you go there, you think you're in like a European country or something.
Really?
Yeah. It's kind of like, wait, where am I? Like you look on the map and then you're like, this is not what I imagined this would be.
Is it like the cobblestone? What makes you think
there's like
European?
Like if you see a really nice, like brand new built house anywhere, just even in the USA, like there's neighborhoods there that you wouldn't even know you were like in Arizona or like some other place in the US. Like it's just the quality and the lifestyle is almost American, almost European. But that's just in certain places.
Yeah.
We went there right during the rainy season, which is only like a couple weeks during the whole year. And then it's like no rain, just harsh desert the whole rest of the year.
Did you go purposefully during the rainy season, or did it just happen to be?
It kind of just happened.
Okay.
So we got like, there was a run that I thought I was going to die getting struck by lightning.
Oh my gosh.
Because because it's like a monsoon. When the rain comes there, it's just crazy. And of course, Sifan and I are just like running down some random path that's going into the desert, and we have no idea where we are. But then you have like we were running through like inches of rain and lightning, and the lightning is crazy there. I can't even explain. Like,
is it very flat or is it mountainous?
In that particular place in Namibia, it's pretty flat. Like they have some of the biggest like. Yeah, they're known for like their desert. I think that's where like where the biggest like, if you ever see movies with desert, most of them are filmed in Namibia.
Okay.
So yeah, but they have a little bit of everything, and they're also like medium altitude, like pretty close to what it is in Utah. So anyways, yeah, that's just it's really easy for me to get sidetracked on one particular location. But to just briefly say like a few other places that we've gone to. So we train in Ethiopia sometimes because that's where Sifan was born. And then you'd be surprised how great the training is in the Netherlands. And
why do you think that is?
They just like, I think the country was just built so recently that almost the entire whole country is based on bike trails spanning. Oh
my gosh, that sounds so nice.
Like spanning hundreds of miles. Like it's just like, and then because of that, they're also really forward thinking and kind of thinking about keeping things wild. And so there's a lot of places where the forests are protected, and that's just like a walking path. So they've made paths through the forest.
Oh, cool.
And I don't like, there's a famous game, The Legend of Zelda, where you get lost in a forest, and like every time you turn left, the forest changes. Like that was me whenever I'm in the Netherlands. Like I get lost. Like I've accidentally done some really long runs because I had no idea where I was.
Like I didn't mean to run a marathon today, but I did.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So do you think there is a perfect place to train? Do you have a favorite place to train for? Would it be different for different athletes, or do you think there is an ideal place to train?
Well, we briefly talked about the idea of Nomad, the thing. So part of that idea was I wanted to go to these different places and be able to help athletes know how to survive in these different training locations.
Cool.
Because I think, like I said, I think one thing that really helps training is the mental aspect of it. And nothing gets you more excited than exploring new places and just seeing new things. And so I almost wish that there was, a lot of different running camps you could go to around the world where the things that are missing there you know what you're missing, but then the local foods and all that stuff, you know how to kind of match what you're used to.
Ah, okay.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like, so anywhere you go, they probably, like, one example is there's fermented foods in almost every country in the world, but you might not know what that fermented food is, and you might not know that that's an important part of the diet. So there's just little things that you might not know. And so when you're going to these different countries, if you knew the best things as an athlete that could help in your training and recovery, then that's a big part of surviving. And that's a big part of what is the best training place in the world. And one big reason why we come back to Utah to train is because we also have access to almost more variety of foods and things that we could possibly want. And that's one of the things that we have, it's hard to find in other places. So yeah. So
I think that's interesting though, looking at food patterns like that, I think is important for everyone, because all cultures have aspects of their food culture that are really important to your health. So to be able to identify those and adapt your diet and lifestyle to the place that you're going to is actually like a really cool idea. That's very cool.
Yeah. And to answer your question about where the best place to train is, I feel like that's a work in progress. There's still a lot of places I want to go explore. And like this year I got invited to go explore in Colombia, but I don't know if I'll have a chance to go there. And Colombia is kind of a scary place. Yeah, but these people, there's already some good marathoners there who are just training up in the mountains. And someone said that they'd pick me up from the airport and bring me to this, place to train. There's a place called Paipa.
Where is that?
It's just in the mountains, like the middle of nowhere, I'm guessing. I've only seen pictures of it, but it looked really beautiful. And it's the same temperature year round. So it's always like 65 degrees, I think.
So perfect.
Yeah, no, it looks really interesting. And
would you take athletes with you, or would you go yourself to see what it was first?
I think ideally, so like last year was an example. Before going to Ethiopia to go train with Sifan for the London Marathon, I went to Peru first. And my brother-in-law is Peruvian. And so he's kind of gotten me interested, and he's always showing me these Instagram posts of like beautiful things in Peru. So he kind of got in my head, but I love to explore anyways. So I went there and I met actually I looked on Strava and IAAF. Yeah. I like searched all these athletes up, and then I messaged them on Instagram. And
oh my God, a detective.
Well, no, almost every single one of them responded to me. And like, sometimes I was like just using Google Translate to translate into Spanish and stuff. But I actually met them in Peru, and they were willing to show me around and help me out and show me where they train. And so yeah, I'm still exploring, and I feel like I can't possibly say I know the best training place. I can tell you where some of my favorite places are, but yeah, anyways, it's a work in progress.
Work to be continued, I guess. That's awesome. Do you think with traveling and training in different areas, you've found some principles that you've applied to your coaching? Like maybe you could talk about one or two of those that you've learned.
Like things that I've learned from the area?
Yeah, from the area or the runners there, or just running there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything that pops out specifically, because I mean, one of the biggest things is the running community is one of the best things that you can really look for. So you like finding people that are from that place. It really has a big impact of what you're able to do and where you're able to go. So I've become, I would say, one, you need to explore as much as possible. And I think that applies to absolutely anywhere in the world. That's something that will keep you excited about finding new things and just give you a goal of what to do. A lot of people are having problems with the lack of, what to do next or what their goal is. And so using that as a goal is really easy, and it's fun too. And I think making sure you do a variety of things is another principle I'd say applies. You see a lot of different training styles and you see a lot of different things work for different reasons. And so I'd say the biggest overall thing on that is make sure you don't focus on one thing too much, and make sure you kind of take the advice of other people and do a little bit of everything and not too much of one thing.
Mm. Do you feel like you have a good moderate approach to a little bit of everything, not too much of one thing? Or is there one thing that you find yourself leaning toward right now?
It's like a constant battle. And so I think that's always something that you have to kind of track what you're doing in order to notice the mistakes you make. And I think if we're making one mistake, it might be going to altitude too much. And I'm still on the fence of whether that's like the best thing to do is to be at altitude as much as possible, or if it's not necessary to be up at altitude too much. One of the reasons we went to Namibia was for the heat training. And so...
How hot does it get there? When you were there, I guess?
Well,
you were there
in between the rain, it was still...
Yeah.
I would say I would compare it to... I think it gets really, really hot, but I would say it's, what it's like in Utah in the summer.
It's like 100, maybe 110.
Yeah. I have a brief experience there, so I don't know that I know exactly the full experience there.
Okay.
But that's also a reason why I went to the Canary Islands one year, to Tenerife. And there it's really hot too, because I've seen really good benefits for heat training and athletes who are based there, even if just for a short while. So I don't know. At times I kind of like to cycle through pushing too much in one direction, and then just keep reminding myself, oh, okay, I got to go back to do more of this. We have to do more strength work. We have to do more heat training. We have to do more altitude. It's just a little bit of a constant reminder. So
constant cycle to make sure you're getting a little bit of everything.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that creates better long-term health in running. And that applies to diet too. It's just that variety. So
what is your nutrition philosophy? Do you coach your athletes on nutrition, or do you basically tell them, this is what I eat, this is what I found works?
I'd actually say that's one of my strengths.
That's cool.
I grew up in a family where they were, my mom was always educating me on exactly what this is why we need to eat this. And she was always working in the supplement industry. Cool. And so for her job was researching all the science between supplements and actually working with doctors. So doctors would send their patients to her she was working at different, in like even Good Earth and other like food places, and people would come to her because the doctor would say, okay, if we want to match up traditional science with, supplements and herbs and things like that. And so from her, I learned so much stuff, and I didn't appreciate it back when I was younger, but now I'm like so glad that I was, kind of pushed towards learning about that. And it's a constant learning thing. Every year it's like new information comes out. And I think that's a really big thing, is just being willing to spend time on learning. I try to take some of it and put it into my athletes' hands. Like I'll send them podcasts, and it's up to them whether they actually take the time to listen to it. But surprisingly, if you give someone information, most of the time they'll follow through and do it. And so anyway, so I guess my philosophy overall is really towards just, whole foods and variety. And like there's a million things I can mention, like fermented foods, fiber, and a lot of really simple things that you need to do a little bit of everything. So.
Yeah, it's like, it seems like the more that I learn about nutrition, it's the basics. And it's just like really hitting the basics hard, hitting whole foods hard. And it is complicated, but it doesn't have to be complicated in execution.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be perfect all the time either.
Yeah. So do you meal plan for your athletes, or do you, I guess you're not like a dietitian, but do you send them the podcast and then they decide what to eat?
So, well, because of our travel, like when we're in St. Moritz, Switzerland, that's one place that we've spent a lot of time in, or even driving from Park City down to Utah County. We do that a lot of times for workouts. We have like an hour drive. And so we'll listen to the podcast together.
Oh, cool.
And so then like sometimes I pause it and I say, hey, do you understand what they're talking about here? Or we say, oh, hey, did you hear that? Or even Sifan will teach me things too that I didn't really like realize they just said. She'll point something out or ask me about it. And then when I think about it more, I'm like, oh yeah, this works together with this and this and this. And so I think a lot of stuff happens with our travels because of that.
Yeah, that sounds like a great way to make use of your time. And sounds like you and Sifan are close because you spend so much time training together, just brainstorming together. You're starting this new project. It sounds like it's an awesome athlete coach duo.
Yeah. Well, this winter break is kind of like a break from like, we have to work together so much. This is a break from like even seeing or talking to each other that much. But I'm actually really excited to get back to training with her. Like when we're talking about nutrition in the past, like, so when I first met her, we were eating black rice instead of, brown rice or white rice, like simple stuff like that. And I don't know how profound of an effect that has, but when I would teach her to do something, I'd come back a month later and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I should have been reminding you about this. And then I would see, oh, she's actually still doing it.
That's awesome.
She would be like applying everything that I taught her.
That's so cool.
That's one of her superpowers for sure, is if you learn something, you have to apply it. Otherwise, you might as well have not learned it.
So. Yeah, you probably didn't learn it because you're going to forget it in like a week or whatever too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tim. I've learned so much from you today. I wish I could talk to you for hours, but I don't want to steal your valuable time. Thank you for coming on the podcast. If you have like one actionable thing for people who are wanting to get into running or young runners who are looking to get into elite athletics, what would you say? Do you have any advice for any specific population?
I mean, this is really specific or really broad, but I think no matter what it is, find what you like to do and do it consistently, or even just find what you want to be good at, even if you don't necessarily enjoy it, because, work is work, but, and do it consistently. And there is more power in doing something consistently than almost anything else you can do. You don't have to do it perfect. If you just do something consistently, you're going to get better at some part of it. So I would just say that's the biggest thing. Do something consistently and also be crazy and have fun. I don't know. The variety is a big part of it too. Be crazy
and have fun.
Yeah. Be crazy, be playful, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tim.
Yep. No problem.